So I hope you're doing good tonight. Thanks for dropping by. Um, so this is kind of interesting. I have no idea what these are. The Compton Yearbook, and I got from 58 through 61, and I think it's some kind of encyclopedia or a book of the year. Do you know like how World Books and Britannica and so forth would come with a yearbook? You might have remembered that if you were a kid in the 80s, and if your parents bought the encyclopedia for you for your schoolwork, you would also get those yearbooks for free, and that was kind of cool. So I think that's what these are. So I'm gonna start with 1958, the oldest one, and I'm guessing this would be the events of 1957. So I got all of these books for 50 cents at Harvest Thrift, which is a great place in Alabama where you can buy old magazines and old books. And this is one of those forgotten things. An annual supplement to Compton's Picture Encyclopedia. It was pretty well bound considering how old this is. It had holes punched in it so you could put it in a binder. A little bit of a crease on the back cover, so I'm going to try to be careful not to fold it too much because the paper might start to get brittle. But there's lots of pictures of American item culture, like the Liberty Bell. There's a flintlock rifle, a Revolutionary War drum, oil dikes, derricks, a Potter balloon, telephone. So, and I think all of these have the exact same artwork on them. Yes, they do. So, not having ever cracked open a Compton Encyclopedia, let's see what's in the yearbook. And it says it happened in 1957. And the 1958 Compton Yearbook, a summary and interpretation of the year's events to supplement Compton's Picture Encyclopedia. Table of contents. Pages 7 through 61, Our Nation, United States government, departments and agencies, states, territories, larger cities, armed services, political parties, relations with foreign countries. The world, foreign nations and other political units, international organizations, notable people, stuff about business, stuff about science, stuff about play, sports, hobbies, games, and travel, art, literature, reprints, new articles from the 1958 edition of Compton's Picture Encyclopedia, airports, air traffic control, international relations, and phonics. So these are new articles that were just added. So think about that for a minute. They just added an article called Airports, Air Traffic Control, International Relations, and Phonics. That should be pretty telling. Chronology of the year 1957, calendar year of 1958, and then an index. And then the next page talks a little bit about the plan for the yearbooks. It's explaining that it's a supplement to the Picture Encyclopedia. It adds a few more articles to complement the encyclopedia, and it covers the year to keep everything current. So this is the information of who contributed, and then the editors and so forth for 1958. And we can sort of see these names. I'm just kind of scanning to see if I do J. Edgar Hoover. Obviously, we know who he is. He was the head of the FBI. Margaret Mead, anthropologist. Quite a good name there. So before I go too far, let me just kind of think about 1957. Let's put it in perspective. 1957 was 17 years before I was born. It was the most popular year of when I was a kid in the 80s. When we talked about the 50s, 1957 was the most popular year, and that's probably because Happy Days took place in 1957. and as kids we watched Happy Days. So 1957, Eisenhower was president. The Korean War was over. America was in a state of prosperity. There was African Americans probably would not agree with that, because there was a lot of discrimination during that time as well. So it was a very layered year of differing attitudes, and so I think that maybe we'll see a glimpse of that. We'll also probably see a lot of patriotic stuff, because this was a time when America was very, very patriotic. It was very much, this was a time during the McCarthy era. This is during the Cold War. This is when we were very alarmed about the Soviet Union in this country. We were very alarmed about a lot of things in the world. So there was a strong sense of patriotism. So, and if anyone's getting mad about my commentary here, I just want to just point out I'm ex-military. I've served my country. So all of these ideas I'm talking about in a very neutral way. I'm not taking any sides on anything. So, starting, very patriotic image, Our Nation, Naval Academy graduation is a gay time. And Adam's symbol rises at Oklahoma Exposition. The Atom, that should tell you a lot right there. That is a Cold War image, and that is a 1950s image if there ever is one. And anyone who plays Fallout probably recognizes that. The atom was the sign of power. It was a sign of technology. It was a sign of the leverage over the Soviet Union, although they also had the atom. Which is a fighter jet from the Air Force. An F-104A supersonic fighter. I made a model of that when I was a kid. Here's a map of Our Nation, and in January 1957, 3 B-52 Stratofortresses flew nonstop around the world. They made the 24,325-mile flight in 45 hours and 19 minutes. Their average speed was 525 miles per hour. The planes were refueled several times a flight by aero tankers, and as you can see, they just went all the way around the world. That was in the Soviet Union and China, and that was a show of force. There's a lot of pictures of military. Leader of Phoenix City cleanup. This is close to home here. I'm very close to Phoenix City. In December 1957, the voters of Alabama approved a state constitutional amendment to abolish Macon County, Alabama. The county was 84% African American and the home of Tuskegee Institute, a large and famous African American college. I am changing that word, and I'm not a big fan of censorship, but at the same time, I'm also not a big fan of offending people either. Not on this channel. The county's 618 square miles were to be divided among its neighbors. One of the state's important projects in 1957 was to build a $1 million international trade center at the port of Mobile on the Gulf Coast. More berths for ships were to be added, and the bulk or terminal was to be expanded. In August, a 36-foot channel to the port was completed through Mobile Bay. The port of Mobile is one of the 10 busiest in the United States. Now, the thing about Phoenix City, this was a very corrupt town. They even made a movie about it. I used to live in Phoenix City, but I didn't live during the time when it was one of the seediest towns in the world. It was full of illegal casinos, and it was full of vice and crime and prostitution, and it was particularly predatory. The proximity to Fort Benning in Columbus made Phoenix City thrive as a vice hub. So that's part of my local history. A control tower at Arizona Airport. So I used to live in Arizona too. Arkansas. I also lived there when I was training in Little Rock Air Force Base. U.S. Army guided missiles, some tanks. Wow, harbor tunnel. So what you can glean as we flip through is in this old 50s style is we're looking at the Cold War playing out in 1957, and this is one of the years of the Cold War. There is no denying it. Named to Senate Hall of Fame. In 1957, a Senate committee headed by Senator John Kennedy of Massachusetts, who would be the president, named these men to the Senate Hall of Fame. From the left there, Henry Clay, Robert M. La Follette Sr., Robert A. Taft, John C. Calhoun, and Daniel Webster. The committee stressed that these were not necessarily the greatest of all senators, but simply outstanding ones. He wrote a book. John Kennedy wrote a book called Profiles in Courage about the very topic of senators who made courageous moves at the expense of their own careers. Henry Clay made the Compromise of 1850. He hastened. I'm sorry. He delayed the Civil War. A lot of this history now, if you really look at it, I suggest you read it on your own and make your own opinions of it, and try to put yourself in the context of the times. So, Queen Elizabeth's visit to Washington, very young Queen Elizabeth. Prince Andrew hadn't been born yet. He would be born in 1960. So she's still a very young woman. Aloha Week pageantry. Hawaii. It's still a territory because on September 2nd, 1957, William F. Quinn was sworn in as Hawaii's 12th territorial governor because it's not a state yet, neither is Alaska. Seminoles vote on the Constitution. The center of the United States. This marker in Kansas locates the exact geographic center of the nation. Marines land at mock battle site. Helicopters take Marines in the site of a mock battle. Marines who have landed are preparing to fire a rocket launcher. Those are, what are those called? Oh my gosh, those are the old helicopters. I want to say Sikorsky, but I may be wrong because I wasn't a Marine and I didn't serve in the 50s. But that is one of the earlier helicopters that was replaced by the Huey. Nixon, he was the vice president at this time. Milwaukee welcomes baseball champions Lou Burdett and Warren Spain. Milwaukee Braves. Not the Atlanta Braves, the Milwaukee Braves. Diamond Jubilee at Laurel, Mississippi. And there's facts about Mississippi. Academy mascots. Leveling a Nevada mountaintop. At this time, that was considered progress. People weren't outraged at blowing up things. We were building and we were making neighborhoods and we were building suburbs. We were making houses. Cherokee, North Carolina. Symbol of Oregon's riches. A view of the Penn Center area. Here's some statistics about 1957 for the American people. 39% employed, 2% unemployed. 62% pay federal income tax. 62% voted in the last presidential election. 19% are veterans. 56% live in urban areas. 57% live in their own homes. 23% are union members, and 6% own stock. So we're just flipping through. I like the sparse use of color in this. South Carolina. It's very 50s. This effect of a spattering of color. And this is a cheaper encyclopedia. This is like a budget encyclopedia. It's not hardcover, it's soft cover. So this would be the encyclopedia that, was accessible to a lot of people. Vice President Nixon swears in William Proxmire as a new senator from Wisconsin. Algerian rebels under French guard. News about South America. The United States Pavilion at the Belgian World's Fair. Campaigning in British Guyana. Lawyer Lyndon F. Burnham, candidate for the Legislative Council, won election for himself and two of his party in South America. I think it's known as Guyana now. That's where the Jonestown incident occurred. Where is Ceylon? Which is, I think it's Sri Lanka now. Yeah, it used to be called Ceylon. A giant poster of Mao Zedong in Shanghai. President and Madam Chiang Kai-shek. Mournful consequences of a revolt in Cuba. Cuba used to be a big casino hub for Americans to go to. And then Castro, with the support of the Soviet Union, turned it into a communist state. So in America, we're still to this day not allowed to freely travel to Cuba. Although I would love to go there and see all of the old cars, because they have some of the most beautiful 1950s era cars that are still driving the roads. Nixon in Ethiopia's capital. And also when it talks about a country, it shows where it is on the map, which is kind of handy. So this is the road of 1957. Nixon is in every picture. My goodness, he was one busy vice president, wasn't he? I guess he was running for president or something later. He thought he was until he ran against JFK. But then he would eventually become president. And if you know how that turned out, the year I was, well, Nixon was president when I was a baby. And what happened was, he was a very popular president. He was well liked. But then he did a really... He sent some people to spy on the Democratic National Convention headquarters in the Watergate Hotel. And they got caught. And then they ended up... Nixon's people paid for them to get out of trouble, paid for their attorneys and stuff. And then there was accusations of hush money, and then it kept coming up higher and higher to Nixon until finally he resigned. And that's really that was the only time in American history when a president resigned. Malaya's paramount ruler and consort. A royal mother and her baby, Princess Grace, who was the American actress Grace Kelly, poses with her infant daughter, heiress to the throne of Monaco. Yes, so Grace Kelly was an American actress in the 50s, a very popular actress. She married, she became Princess Grace because she married Prince of Monaco. She was killed. I want to, now, I cannot remember, but I think it might have been in my lifetime. I think it was the 70s or 80s. I want to say she was killed in a car accident. And it was very much front page news. That she was one of those, like, there's been, every generation has had their princess. For example, there was Eva Peron, Princess Grace, Princess Diana, Princess Elizabeth. We now have to a certain extent we have Meghan Markle and Princess Catherine. Of course, I think when we sum them all up, I think Princess Diana is definitely the most famous princess in the last few centuries, probably. I don't think anything topped her as far as just the exposure. I'm just expecting to see Nixon in all of these pictures. Romania instead of Romania. It's interesting how some of the names are different. Kissed by a Saudi Arabian prince. At a children's party in Washington, D.C., 3.5-year-old Prince Masher obediently kisses a girl who brought him gifts. The Suez Canal was reopened. United Nations General Assembly in session. Secretary of State John Foster Dulles announced the UN General Assembly on September 19th, 1957. He accused Russia of risking war by arming Syria and threatening Turkey. Irene Dunne, film star and alternate U.S. delegate to the UN, attends the session. So, if you thought Ronald Reagan was the first Hollywood celebrity, it's been happening for a long time. Or if you thought Donald Trump was the first Hollywood celebrity. No, it's always been going on. People. Let's talk about famous people of 1957. Miss Universe and Miss America, right here. Boy Scouts of America, Boys Club, Campfire Girls. I don't think Campfire Girls exist anymore, but there's a really interesting video if you Google it on YouTube. There's some videos of the Campfire Girls in the 1930s that they kind of did some home videos that look is so clear. It looked like they were shot yesterday. If you want to get a good example of how people dressed and acted, they were doing some skits for their families, and to see the 1930s, the Great Depression, it was really kind of a cool. I need to. If you ask me, I'll send you a link, or I'll try to remember to put a link in the description. Here's some deaths of notable people in 1957. Humphrey Bogart, motion picture actor, starred in Casablanca, died in 1957. Christian Dior, Parisian fashion designer. You still see that name pop up a lot. Jimmy Dorsey, popular band leader, big band leader. Tommy Dorsey's brother. Oliver Hardy. Fat man and comedy team of Laurel and Hardy. August 7th in North Hollywood, California, age 65. I used to watch Laurel and Hardy when I was a kid. You would, even if you don't know the name, you'd recognize them if you saw them, even today. Dr. Joseph W. Kennedy. Joseph Raymond McCarthy, controversial U.S. Senator from Wisconsin since 1946, May 2nd in Bethesda, Maryland. Louis B. Mayer, former motion picture producer, production head of MGM Studios. Diego Rivera, Mexican painter, the partner of Frida Kahlo. Wow. Disasters of 1957, a wreckage left by a tornado. Destroyed a cotton gin. This is a map of major disasters in the United States. There's Nixon again. Wow. He was a busy vice president. the first picture we've had of our President Eisenhower right here, but we've had about 20,000 of Nixon. Canada's Queen, Britain's Queen Elizabeth II, also the Queen of Canada. She was actually quite attractive in this picture. Sparky the dog speaks. 4-H'ers raise livestock. This is all about clubs, 4-H. So here's another thing about the 50s, and then I kind of remember this as a kid, and this may still occur in small town America. I don't see it too much where I live, but do you remember when Marty McFly drives to Hill Valley and he sees all of the logos on the sign? Well, that was a big deal. Being part of a club was a thing in the 50s. Being part of the Rotarians or the Shriners or the Freemasons or all the many clubs, that was just something that a 1950s man did. And I think it had something to do with the war years. I think it had something to do with, you know, getting out of World War II, but still wanting to be part of a unit, part of a platoon, if you will. So look at that. That's Bobby Kennedy. Counsel Kennedy inspects toy truck. Robert Kennedy inspects an exhibit on the hearing room table of the U.S. Senators Brackets Investigation Committee. He was already busy. And, of course, Bobby Kennedy would become Attorney General. Khrushchev makes his TV. Khrushchev was a leader of the Soviet Union in the 50s. If you grew up in the 80s like me, you would have known that because we knew all about Khrushchev and Nixon and the Cold War because we were still in the Cold War. Marriages. Harry Belafonte, folk singer, actor, and dancer Julie Robinson. Marlon Brando, 33, actor and actress Anne Cashfee at Eagle Rock, California. She claims she was a Native American. Mr. and Mrs. William Patrick O'Callaghan of Ireland claims she was their daughter, born in Calcutta, India. I'm not surprised. Marlon Brando has kind of a sketchy history. Google Sasheen Littlefeather at some point. Bing Crosby married Kathy Grant. T.S. Eliot married Valerie Fletcher. Henry Fonda with Italian Countess Aldera Franchetti. Rex Harrison and actress Kay Kendall. Susan Hayward and Floyd Eaton Chalkley. Howard Hughes, before he moved into the Dunes Hotel, he married actress Jean Peters before he kind of lost his marbles. Younger brother Nixon got married. This could be the year of Nixon, this book, because Nixon again. Wow. Missile and space travel. We were 12 years from landing on the moon. The Mercury program was the first attempt to land on the moon, and that had not started yet. Billy Graham. American boy embraces the smiling Pope. You know, I've been through a lot of popes in my life already, which is strange. I've been through Pope Paul, then Pope John Paul I, and he only lasted a few days. Then Pope John Paul II, then Pope Benedict, and now Pope Francis. So I've been through 5 popes, but my dad has only been through like 6. So it's weird. Marshal Tito of Yugoslavia, the benevolent dictator as they call him. He kept Yugoslavia together. Newest of the Volkswagen models, right there. Machine Method Speed Business Paperwork. We're getting into the computer age, too. The punch card computers. Oh my gosh, it's Nixon. We get a glimpse of our president, and Nixon is in the foreground. So much Nixon. The Kitchen of the Future. laying pipeline for gas transport. Family rooms were becoming popular. When I was my grandparents, when I used to go visit their house, they had an old house, and well, my family still has this house, but the house was built in the 1800s, and one of the rooms was called the parlor. And among other things, the purpose of that room was if one of our family members died, we didn't have funeral homes back. They didn't have funeral homes. Now this is a little bit before me, but the dead family member would be laid in state in the parlor for the family to see. Funeral homes is a recent thing. That was a recent industry because the parlor in the house was one of its purposes. And the rest of the time, it was kind of like the equivalent of the family room, too. Two controversial Teamster leaders. On the left is Jimmy Hoffa. If you watch the movie The Irishman, that's who Al Pacino plays. When it is served at gay Halloween parties, the familiar hot dog is known by a special holiday name, the Halloweener. The Halloweener. Oh my gosh. Oasis Motel Hotel has features of both. The Oaks Manor in Dallas has 2 levels, and a hotel dining room also has motel parking and room access. See, this is the Route 66 time too, where you saw those old neon hotel signs. You can still catch a few of them if you go out west, and there's a few even on the east side. But it is a dying thing, so if you can take that road trip, take it. Go down Route 66 or historic Route 66 and see those places before they really are gone. Because in my lifetime, a lot of the ones I remember as a kid are already gone. There's not much left. It's just people don't travel much. Well, obviously we're not traveling now because of the whole that which will not be named, but still more Cold War stuff. Balloons. President escapes by helicopter. You know, helicopters didn't really play a part in World War II, but they did play a huge part in the Korean War. They really weren't perfected until the 50s. A lot of people don't realize that. But if you watch It Happened One Night, the movie, there is an early version of a helicopter plays a big role in that movie, which was in 1934. So they had the technology, they just had not perfected it yet. Now we get to the play section, whether it's clay modeling or sports. Clay modeling was a popular hobby in the 50s. All-American basketball team. Seen of basketball played. Look at the 2 levels in the arena. Boxing, fishing, football, golf, model plane building, hockey, figure skating, favorite American sport, ping pong, equestrian, Althea Gibson, the new postage stamp, right here. When I was a kid, it cost 13 cents to mail a letter. A real castle in Spain, in Segovia. The 4 best dressed women in the world right here. The Duchess of Windsor. The Duchess of Windsor, that's if I'm not mistaken, that is Wallace Simpson, Edward VIII. Maybe I'm mistaken, but Edward VIII, who abdicated. Around the World in 80 Days was a very popular movie in 1957. It was directed by Michael Todd, who was married to Elizabeth Taylor. He died before the movie or died shortly after the movie. And then Carrie Fisher's dad, Eddie Fisher, ended up running off with her. And then poor old Debbie Reynolds. And I'm a huge fan of Carrie Fisher since she's Princess Leia. Magazine racks grow bigger. Here's another thing. We didn't have comic book stores in the 50s. I don't know if I've ever said that. We didn't really have them when I was a kid. You only bought your comic books at a grocery store on the rack. I never saw a comic book store until maybe the 90s. They might have existed before, but I sure don't remember them. Katharine Hepburn. My Fair Lady. Popular musical from the 50s. There's the animals in nature, zoos. How the dog in Sputnik was equipped. Laika, the Soviet dog, was kind of a Marvel superhero now. Nature Antics of 1957. Monkey business. In North Vernon, Indiana, an automobile agent advertised, "We're ready to trade." He lived up to his slogan by accepting a monkey as part payment on a car. Dog mumps. Alan Young, 4 years old, of Nashville, Tennessee, had to play nurse for Tony, Alan's pet boxer, when the dog contracted the mumps. Mouse-loving cats. Los Angeles chef Al Orozco got a cat to keep mice out of his coffee shop. He was happier when the cat had kittens. Then Chef Orozco discovered a mouse had squeezed in among his cat's 4 kittens, and all 5 were nursing from the mother. A tomcat belonging to H.L. Oliver of Oklahoma took his cat naps in front of a television set. He watched only when Mickey Mouse cartoons were on. Airports. Now here's some articles that are kind of like for the encyclopedia now. And here's one about airports because they're still relatively new. As I mentioned, helicopters are very new. My dad used to tell me about going to the airport in the 50s and how it was a formal experience. Everyone wore suits and ties. Everyone was dressed to the nines. They would get on the plane and they would get complimentary cigarettes and drinks. It was a whole different world back then. A different time. And I can remember some glimpses because I feel like when I was born, we were still kind of coming off of a lot of these things. But these days are long gone now. They are over. And I think, no, that's Prince Philip, Queen Elizabeth's husband. Atomic energy stamp. This was a stamp that was good for Soviet, the United States. It was a United Nations stamp. We tried to do a lot of stuff like that to try to heal the problems of the world. And we get to the index, and this was an enjoyable thing. I hope you enjoyed looking at it. I've got 3 more. If you like the video, let me know, and I'll review them as well. So thanks so much for stopping by, and I'm always glad to see you. And if you like my channel, subscribe. Click the bell icon if you want to hear about my videos. Give me a like if you enjoyed it. Write me a comment and I'll answer it. I usually take a little over a week to answer them, but I do get around to answering comments. So thank you so much, and until next time, bye.